to Talks with Griff. It is a pleasure to always have all of the viewers, my audience, the people that really vibe with me in the seat. As you know, before we get started, I always have to do Candle of the Evening in homage to the Godfather, Kevin Samuels. Tonight we have Tonka and Almond Milk, a very soft, sensual, relaxing scent, masculine, but it can also be put into a spa. You can put it into your bathroom. You can even have it in the living room if you want it like that as well. But I chose this one tonight for the special guest that we have in the seat. By the way, we have, ladies and gentlemen, this is really nice to have this lady in the seat. We have the Jaguar Priestess, Alexis Trion. She's a bilingual leadership coach in Spanish, fluent. And when I say fluent, as in we could have this whole podcast in Spanish, she would talk in Spanish and I would talk in English because your boy don't really know that much Spanish. And she also focuses on consciousness healing. And I want to say she centers a lot of her teaching and coaching around helping women truly embody all aspects of their feminine energy so that way they can ascend to the divine feminine. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexis Trion, how are you doing, ma'am? It's a pleasure to have you here today. How are you feeling?
Thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Of
I'm doing
course.
well. It's good to be here with you. I love the candle, the background, like got the whole setup, the whole vibe. Thank you.
I have, do you know that's how I do it? That's how I do it. That's how I do it.
It's beautiful. It's appreciated. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's been these last few months have been somewhat of a journey since starting jujitsu and being in college and everything. But jujitsu is helping out a lot more than I ever thought it will, and I'm appreciating that journey a lot.
Yeah. What's it doing for you? I know a lot of people that practice it, but I've never practiced it myself.
So it's a community-based thing that it's doing for me, authentic connection, and I'm healing in a different way. If I can put it to you like that, I'm healing in a different way. So about the past year and a half, I went to therapy after some things that happened in my life, and I guess you can say you can graduate therapy, or sometimes you never really graduate therapy. But I still have his number, and so a friend of mine that I work with, he invited me to come to class one day. So I was like, sure. Well, why not go to class? And immediately, right out the gate, ego was triggered. Ego's like, I don't like this. Like you start fighting with everything that you have, right? And they say jujitsu is a gentle art. Sometimes it's a gentle art. And then as time went on, I showed up to class more and more. I got a gi to make it official. So I've actually started the path, and I'm going to continue the path until I'm unable to do it for anymore. And I'm able to see in real time how I'm putting my ego aside when I step on the mat. In my early stages, they call it the white belt spaz, right? You're spazzing out, I don't like this position. I don't like somebody mounting me, da 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 da. And then after a while, one day you just step on the mat and it's like, oh, I'm mounted. Okay, this is
Mm.
fine. I can relax here. Let me remember my training. Let me remember my skills on how to get out of here. And before you know it, your body starts moving autonomously. And then you get back to somewhat of a half guard position, and then you retain guard, and it's like, oh, okay, this I can actually do this. If I tell my ego to just be quiet for a little bit, and I breathe, because breathing is very important, and not be in a rush to try to hulk out, as they say, it's it's a smoother practice for me, and just mentally overall, like it really highlights aspects of you internally and externally that I don't think would be shown to you in any other setting, due to the fact that one, somebody's trying to strangle you or break a limb, and
Hmm.
two, you just you're trying to fight for your life and also strangle them and break one of their limbs too.
But it's so interesting because all that like real intense physicality, but I
Yeah.
also heard like at the beginning of what you were describing, it sounded like you're going into a flow state. It
Yes.
sounded like you're letting your body do it's like when I'm dancing, or I
Hmm.
just let my body do its thing and people are like, well, what are you doing or how are you doing that? And I'm like, I'm not thinking about it at all. Like it's just
Hmm.
happening. And then and it's something I was thinking muscle memory, but it's almost like beyond that. It's almost like
Hmm.
muscle memory plus something divine, like a divine connection to your soul, to source, to something that's moving you. So it's not even like when you say you put your ego to your side, to the side, you know, I'm thinking it's not even fully you or how you think of your concept of self. It's like a
Mm.
bigger you and it's moving and you're just going and you're like you're surrendered and you're just like fully in it. That's what I heard.
Yes,
That's what it sounds
yes, that's exactly what it is. Because this,
like.
we live in a day and age where people they want to skip the process with the gym, with entrepreneurship, business, finances, love and relationships, right? People want to skip the process. And the process of jujitsu is just getting your ass kicked every single day. It's just you just get your ass kicked. And some days you might kick some ass. Some days you might not get your ass kicked as much. But
Yeah.
I was explaining this to my friend. What I like about it is that there's no cheat code that you can put into it. There's no one that you can talk to. There's no program that you can buy that's gonna have you skip over this rock to get to a blue belt or a purple belt or a black belt. And I
Mm.
don't know if you know that there is a belt system, so there's somewhat of a
Okay.
hierarchy to it. There's white, purple, excuse me, there's white, blue, purple, brown, and black. Now, depending on the professor, if you will, right now I'm a white belt with one stripe. Once you get to four stripes, your next promotion would be the next belt, right?
Okay.
And it's interesting because in other different forms of martial arts, there's forms that you learn and then they kind of promote you in that way. But in this, there's no form to say, okay, hey, you're ready for this belt or you're ready for this stripe. It's really up to you. The coaches are looking at you. And what I find is that they're not
Mm.
looking at, they're not so much focused on you physically versus who you are internally, what your character is like. How do you roll? Roll is a term for training. How do you roll with women in a class? How do you roll with men? Are you aggressive? Are you an asshole? Are you somewhat gentle? Do you try to explain what's happening? Do you allow someone else to explain what's happening to you so that way you can get out of it?
Mm.
And that helps out a lot because you realize that your growth is really dependent upon you, how often you show up and really what you put into it. That there's no I think it's the most authentic way of looking yourself in the mirror.
It's beautiful. It
Mhm.
sounds like it's a much deeper connection than what you can see on the surface in terms
Yes,
of
ma'am.
what the teachers are looking for
Yes, ma'am.
to advance you to the next one. That's like looking across all the dimensions, like all the aspects, looking at the spiritual, looking at the physical, looking at the emotional, looking at the mental, bringing
Mhm.
all of it together and seeing how is this person interacting, how are they engaging, and then
Mhm.
are they worthy of getting to that next stage, which is really cool. I feel like that's kind of how we got to do everything. So I love it.
Yeah, you
A little
said the right word.
microcosm.
You said the right word, worthiness. Worthiness is truly it. Like, are you worthy? Are you worthy of this next promotion? Are you worthy of being in a healthy relationship? And ultimately, that question is, have you done the work
Mm-hmm,
in
mm-hmm.
real time, in isolation? What does that work look like for you? So, one of the questions that I want to start off with, because we've had all kinds of conversations offline, and this is our first time actually sitting down and going really deep into a discussion.
Yeah.
Can you explain briefly how you transformed into the woman that we see before us today? Everybody has a story, right? Of, their darkness. I listened to one of your podcasts where you talked about Little Wolf. That one was actually pretty amazing. So can
Mm,
you give us a little bit of
thank
some
you.
of your challenges and tribulations as a divine feminine and what you've learned along the way?
Oh my goodness. I love this question. There's so much, right? Like how do you distill your story, right? So
Mm,
I find myself every time I tell my story, it's different because who I am in the moment is different than the last time I told it or the next time I tell it. So it's be like
mm-hmm,
different elements at play. I just wanted to say too how impressed I am with the whole jujitsu thing that we're talking about because it's
mm-hmm.
like such a reflection for life. But like that's training for life.
It
So
is.
I just wanted to say that real quick because that like I was just soaking in what you were saying, and I was like, well, I'm impressed. Like, that was really beautiful. So I just want to say that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And this question, like, it takes me back to all the way from, like, you know, where I grew up, that influenced me so much, to all of the travels through the places you got on your screen there, like, to where I am right now.
Mhm.
Um, but so basically, like, my journey started in Seattle. I grew up in the inner city, in the hood, and it was like very interesting because it was like so much struggle and so much strife, and at the same time so much love and so much community and so much solidarity and um so much beauty in all the diversity that was surrounding me. It taught me, it gave me this strength, like this inner courage, this inner strength, this inner knowing that, like, love is surrounding me at all times, and that, like, there's always people that are, like, for me and who I could be for. So it gave me this inner sense of connection to community, this inner spirit of, I think, just being a bridge builder, if you will. I didn't think of it at the time, right? I didn't even never think of that concept until way later, like in my mid-20s. But it took me to a lot of places that I'm very grateful to have gone at this stage, places I didn't think that I would ever necessarily go. Like, I'm literally looking at your screen, I'm like, I've been there, and it's so beautiful and it's wild. So I left Seattle when I was 18. I got almost a full ride scholarship to university in California, University of San Francisco. Went there, studied international studies. I was solid. I was like, I'm gonna go work for an NGO. I'm gonna work for the UN. I'm gonna do something like some sort of big diplomacy type, you know, oriented thing. That was my kind of goal, or if you will, or what I thought my purpose was when I was 18, 19. And left college, got out of that, got really disillusioned with the whole nonprofit system and the way the government things are set up, and the United Nations and the World Bank and all these things. So I was like, what am I going to do? You know, I felt like, oh my gosh, I have all this new information from what I've been studying. What am I going to do? Like, I literally was just asking it over and over. Like, I don't even know what to do anymore, because that whole path, that whole plan that I had lined up, I'm now seeing is totally filled with corruption, and it's totally filled with all these things that I don't want to participate in. And I was like, what do I do? Because I saw two routes. I saw either I go into it regardless and I change it from the inside out, or I got to build something external and change it from the outside in. And I was like, you know, I consulted with my spirit, and I was like, I got to go out. I got to go out first. So I made that choice, right? And I think people have different ways of approaching solutions and how we drive solutions, how we build solutions. And for me, that was the answer at that time. So I left the United States. I went to Costa Rica, like straight up jungle, straight up tropics, like tarantulas the size of your hand, you know, like venomous snakes, like all this wild stuff. And I lived, I had family out there. So I lived like off the grid permaculture space farm for 3 months, moved to Panama after that for 9 months. And then it was the complete opposite. I was living in Panama City. I was like partying my ass off. I was like drinking and smoking and just having a crazy time. Like it was madness. And I also had this like huge awakening process when I was in Panama. And I realized I don't want to do those things anymore either, because I actually felt so much better when I was aligned with my spirit, when I was in my confidence, when I was in my power, and I was in my beauty, when I was just in myself. And I didn't actually need that other stuff that I was using to feel good about myself so I could interact with other people. So I actually kind of left all of that lifestyle, if you will, in Panama. It's a long journey, right? So I hope you're coming with me here. So
I'm
like
with you. I'm with you. I say all the time that it doesn't, when we start the path, right, if you deter off, that's just a side mission. It's okay. The side
Hmm.
missions give you the experience that you would not have had back on the main path, because
Oh yeah.
there's gonna be bosses, obstacles, and different challenges, right? So if you don't, you're
Sure.
walking and you take a left turn, you meet somebody, you meet this other woman, you do something else just how you did when you were exploring for 3 months. That gave you the experience for everything that you did 9 months in, back when you were in Panama City, right?
Hmm.
And because if you wouldn't have spent those 3 months there, you get to Panama, you probably would never even made it to Panama City, thus bringing you back onto the path. Your path would have been completely different. And we've all seen the picture of success isn't a straight line. It's more of like a silly straw. It's just going all over the place. So
Exactly.
I'm with you.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah. So Panama was big for me. Like the reason I got us to Panama is like some things happened. I had some health challenges when I was in Panama that were like really significant and that were not like basically I don't want to say incurable necessarily, but Western medicine had no idea how to deal with them. And the remedies and treatments and options that I was getting presented with, it was multiple. There were like three different health challenges within that 9 month period where the answers I was getting were basically, we don't really know. You're just gonna have to see. You're just gonna have to wait. We don't have any really idea what's going on, essentially. Over and over, I was hearing this for these quote unquote different things, quote unquote unrelated things, right? And I was like in this big process of awakening, and I was in this big process of shifting things up, and I was like, something's wrong. Like for me, it was a crisis moment because I was just like, what do you mean? Like everything I've been taught to rely on and all these structures and all these systems and all these ways of being and doing things and healing, for example, that none of that is functioning. None of that is literally working at all. And not only that, but it's also basically I'm hearing over and over again, we don't even know what to do. And I was like,
It's making
okay.
people worse. That's what's going on.
I was like, I was like flabbergasted because I was like, this is stuff that I feel like should be solvable, should be handleable, right?
Hmm.
So I took matters in my own hands. I was like, okay,
Figure
I
this
guess
shit
it's
out
me.
myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's me. I guess up to me. I guess I'm gonna just do it. And that was very isolating. I would say, looking back at it, like in a way, it was really hard to do it that way because I felt like um, I didn't have anybody like who had gone there before, right? Like I didn't have a role model to follow. I didn't have
Hmm.
somebody who had like stuck their neck out before me, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do what they did. Like I was just literally like, I gotta figure this shit out because
Hmm.
no one knows what they're talking about at all in any of this. So I tried like everything. And I think that for me was a huge catalyst that really propelled me forward into where I went from there. And that really like steered me into a whole new trajectory for life.
Hmm.
So what I had thought, a few years prior in college about working for the UN or working in some sort of diplomatic organization or some sort of NGO in some sort of global context, like all that, it shifted. And then this for me was huge because it was earth shattering to basically have the whole foundational roots of an entire system and structure of how things are supposed to work up completely uprooted. Like not only does it not function, but it's like it just it just doesn't work at all.
Hmm.
And so that was a massive turning point for me. And from there, I traveled all around South America for like 2.5 years by myself out of a backpack, like straight up backpack on my shoulders. And I just literally talked to God about the whole thing. At the time, I said the universe. Nowadays, I'll say God, but I
Hmm.
just said, hey, universe, like, which way you want me to go? What boat should I take? Who should I talk to? Where should
Hmm.
I stay? Like, it was a constant dialogue that I was having on a daily basis. And it was leading me to some incredible healing breakthroughs, natural remedies, indigenous medicines, plant medicines, like all sorts of different things, like energy healing. I was exploring everything. I was like, nothing's off the table because I'm gonna get this healing no matter what. Like
Hmm.
that was where my anchor was set. And I was just like, blinders, super focused. Like
Hmm.
that's it. And at the same time, I was exploring everything, but I knew like that was my goal. Like that was where I had my eyes set until I got there. So for me, when you ask me that question of like, how did I get to where I am? It's been a huge process of exploration, curiosity, building bridges, being willing to talk to literally like anyone and everyone, being willing to like go way beyond my comfort zone. Go like, I mean, I got to a point, there was a point a few years ago where I literally felt like I dissolved my comfort zone. I don't even know what that shit is anymore. And I was literally like, what even is it? Where is it? Who is it? What?
Right.
That's shifted now, but it was amazing to go into a space of literally just like everything was unknown all the time. Like I did not live in one place. People ask me where I live. Where do you live, Alexis? And I'd be like, right here, right now. I was like in the Amazon, like, you know, in Brazil. The next month I was in Uruguay. None of my friends knew where I was. I was just constantly like all these different places, right? And I was doing it really, really, really minimalistically, like on a shoestring budget, like staying at little hostels, like just meeting all the locals, going wherever, just like on the super fly. And I think that growing up where I did actually gave me like really solid tools to do that because I had really solid boundaries and really solid discernment. So I always knew like this is for me, this is not for me, right? So I never put myself or found myself in like dangerous situations, or when I had like that training, we talk about training, right, of life. Like growing up in the hood was training. So then I had that plus my connection to the divine, which I developed when I was living in Panama. Those two things, it just led me to be like, let me just be bold. Let me just be, you know, courageous. Let me just step
surrender.
out.
Let me surrender.
Yes, totally trust. At that, when I was living in that, it was like, in that way, my trust was like at an all-time high. It was so easy to trust because I'd say, hey, you know, should I go left? Should I go right? And then be like, oh, go right. And I'd go right. And then I'd meet some incredible person and they'd tell me some information that would lead me to, you know, the next place I adventured to. So my life was just this like huge adventure for like 7.5 years in total over the time period I was living in Latin America. I'm like immensely grateful for that. So much so I don't know what to do with that on a daily basis because like it was amazing to live in that way. And I almost like I want to go back to it. Like it's weird for me to be in one place. It's weird for me to be stationary.
You want
I'm
another
like,
transformative experience? Like, can I have another 7 years, please? No, just not right now. Okay, now I'll wait, but I kind of want that time again.
it's just weird for me to be in like one place. And it's been interesting because my soul's been calling me to it, to like be grounded and like stay in one space for like the last 2-3 years. But it's like I'll be honest with you, it's hard for me because I feel like that call of like that pull of adventure and the
Of
unknown.
going into the unknown, yeah.
I love it. So I do that in my mind, like in terms of consciousness exploration, in terms of like being fully responsible for my health. Like, okay, so this thing is happening, you know, how am I creating this? Like, how am I generating this? In terms of my relationships, in terms of like the way I interact, like that's where I'm at right now is like exploring those new frontiers within me, how I am, how I show up, who I be for the world, how I create, what I generate on a daily basis. So I'm not at any sort of destination point. It's just like in a continual process of unfoldment. So
And
I hope that answers
that
your question.
no, that was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for going into extreme detail about it because I understand um how much confidence it takes to do that and how much safety you have within yourself to be able to explain the ups, the downs, the highs and the lows of that 7 year period of your life because it's transformative for you. That there's been many times where like you may have went right and you think, okay, well, I'm listening to my discernment and something doesn't go as we would like it to go. And I'm like, shit, did I make the right decision? Like, am I really trusting myself? And then what I find also throughout your story in regards to trust and surrender is that we've been so conditioned by the outside world that it almost seems as though the connection that we have with our discernment is kind of lost. Because when we say we want to trust and surrender, in my assertion, we're really asking ourselves, can I trust and surrender that I know what's best for me at this point in time?
100%.
That's difficult for a lot of people. Yeah, I even find it still difficult today and with this version of myself at times, because I think, okay, well, I've made mistakes before, but I'm still here today. So it doesn't mean that I am lawless, or that I'm just gonna be out here just like Gandhi walking on air. It's not gonna be like that. There's gonna be times when I'm gonna make a decision, because I think that if you don't make a decision, then that's worse. That's making the wrong decision. It's better to make a decision than to not make one at all. But within making the decision, you become more confident in knowing what decision is right for you. A friend of mine, shout out to Rianne, one tactic that she uses is, she says to just listen to your body. Really, really listen to what your body is telling you. Prime example would be the butterflies, right? You're around, ooh, this woman is sexy. Oh my god. And you just all these butterflies, and come to find out, scientifically speaking, that's kind of an alarm system.
Yeah.
That's your body telling you, like, hold on, mate. Hello. It may seem good. We need to leave the premises, that this isn't really good for you. And it's funny because when you're around safety, you're even more like, I don't know about this. I'm unsure about this. But when you're
It
around,
depends what our system. It depends what our system is trained to, right?
exactly.
Like, if we're not entrained to safety when we're little, which I think a lot of people that I've met, myself included, like, we were not entrained to that when we were little. So it actually feels unfamiliar.
Very
we
uncomfortable.
Like, oh, exactly, it's uncomfortable, which is a little bit frightening, right? And that's just biological. There's no avoiding that. Every human being has that. That's why getting out of your comfort zone, whether it's jujitsu or it's traveling or it's whatever, is so important, because you're training yourself. You're like evolving your adaptive response to the unknown, to the uncomfortable, so that it doesn't stop you from doing shit. I think that's essential, because it doesn't need to stop you. And what you're saying about, like, this trusting your body, listening to your body, is like 100%, 100,000% essential. And I think for me, there was like two things in what you said. One was like, just fuck it up with passion sometimes. Just go for it anyway and just
get
fuck
your
it
ass
up.
kicked. If you're on the mat, just go ahead and get your ass. It's okay, because you'll find that you'll smile throughout the ass kicking.
Get your
It's
heart
weird.
broken. Get your heart broken. Like, there's a phrase that I heard. It sucks, but it's also beautiful. Like, there's a
It's
phrase that I heard
necessary.
recently, and it's better to live with a bruised heart than a closed heart. And that hit me so deep. Because I was like, oh, my heart is so fucking bruised. I hope I'm allowed to swear on your show.
No, you're good. You're good. If y'all don't know by now, then I don't really know what to tell you. You might as well find another show to go sit at. It's authentic over here, for real.
So, like, my heart is so bruised. And how do I show up? Because life has just bruised the shit out of my heart. And sometimes I've been like, come on, God, come on, life. Like, I don't want to do this. Can we stop with this bruising?
For real, like, another lesson. There's another one. Like, what can I get the reward after the lesson? No, that there's another one. And it's crazy that you say that bruised heart. That really resonates with me so much, because I always ask myself this question. That I would say that a lot of my lessons, or the majority of them, have come from romantic endeavors. And I could be very valid in putting on my future hat and just going out into the world and just being a city boy. I could be very, very valid in doing that. And then some days I go to the gym, I sit down and I just think to myself, or I'll talk to my sister. Shout out to my sister, because she regrounds me. it's like I haven't yet. I still choose to accept that that's a part of life. And at some point in time, you could make that pathway to be quote unquote the villain, if you will. But what I've learned is that you may not come back from that. And in that process, you could lose who you truly are. It doesn't make you a wussy or a punk. It doesn't make you weak. You just understand that your strength comes in a different way. You know, even outside of romantic endeavors, right? Just life as a whole. There's been plenty of things that's happened where that I could be completely valid in saying, you know what? Nope. We gonna close these doors. We gonna lock it up. Put an electric fence around it, and you can come a knocking, but I ain't letting nobody in.
Absolutely.
And you miss your blessings that way. You really do.
That's exactly how you miss it. Yeah. This is one thing that I think about a lot, is that I have made synonymous in my mind the words courage and vulnerability. Because I think like the bravest thing we can do is like live with our heart open. And it is so terrifying. Like, it scares the shit out of me. I had a lot of romantic
just talking about it.
Yeah, just like you, where it's like, ow. And then I was thinking to what you said earlier about like mistakes. Like, what even is that, right? Like we have some sort of like societal, culturally defined norms of what a mistake is. But it's like, I think we get to redefine that, re-signify that. So it's not, it's, I tried something, right? Like I did something. I went outside my comfort zone. Like I got something, I got to a new place. So I think instead of thinking about, for example, if it's like a past partner where, you know, for a while, like there was one relationship where I was like, that was a mistake. And I didn't tend to, most of them, I was like, no, that was beautiful. Like, I'm so glad we had that. And then there was this one that for a while I was thinking that was a mistake, until I talked to this one man who knew us both. And he was like, you guys were literally like there for each other in the most perfect ways, in the most perfect time. What if you looked at all the lessons? What if you looked at all the blessings? What if it wasn't a mistake? And that just shook me, because I was like, I was almost attached to calling it a mistake. I was attached to like victimizing myself to that relationship. I wanted like him to be the bad guy, and you know, he was so wrong, and like he did all this stuff. And I was like, nah, we both participated actively in the creation of that relationship. And so I removed myself from my own like victimization to
taking
it, and
accountability.
Yes, and then responsibility, right? And I was like, okay, dang, it was hard, it hurt, but it was like the lessons, the beauty, the things that I realized, like how I can show up, the things that I realized I actually do deserve, the things I can be available for. There were so many blessings. And if I just close myself off and I'm like, you know, then I lose all of that, and it's gone, and I don't really actually grow, because I'm shut off. I'm closed.
It's hard to get it back. It's really hard to get it back. And that concept of wanting to turn it all off, that there's this show that's called Vampire Diaries, and the originals. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. And they're vampires. There's original vampires, and then there's just vampires that were turned. In the show, vampires can shut off their humanity, basically make it so that way they're still moving and going about, but they basically don't have a consciousness. And for them to turn their humanity back on, it takes something very cathartic, something very drastic for them, and it happens internally. Like you can see the emotion on their face when it clicks back on. What's interesting about that phenomenon is that once it comes back on, everything that they did, all the people that they hurt along the way, when their humanity was off, they feel all of that. It's like going down a roller coaster. Once you get to the peak of it, you just feel all of it, right? And so I think about it's the same thing in real time. If you were to shut everything off for, let's say, let's give it a year, right? And then January 1st on the next show, let's say we will start with spring, because we don't fuck with that Gregorian calendar shit. In the spring, your humanity comes back on, and then now you're just flooded with all of these emotions, and now you have to process all of that. So I think in alignment with what you're saying is that the beauty and the lessons is being able to process what you've learned, process the whole aspect of it after it's happened. That way you can prepare yourself for what's next to come. Otherwise,
Mm,
you'll still be in your ego, being a victim mindset, saying that he or she did this to me. I should have
yeah.
never put myself in that situation. But it's always shoulda, woulda. But you did that to you.
Mm-hmm.
So a part of you knew that you needed it, and we don't like that. We really
100%.
don't like that.
Well, it comes down to accountability and responsibility. And I
Right.
think part of that is owning our power. And I look at like where we're at as a whole, and like most of humanity is like distanced from their power. And a lot of systems and a lot of structures have been set up to distance us from our power and recognize who we truly are and what we're actually capable of, which we don't even have any idea. I
Mm-mm.
think, what we're even really capable of. So I think a huge part of this process is reclaiming how powerful we are and not letting it go to our heads though, because knowing where that comes from. It's not self sourced. It's not just from me. It's not like, oh, I'm powerful and that person isn't, or they're powerful and I'm not,
Mm-mm.
right? It's like we all are because we're all part of something. Like you have this beautiful background and it's all like ecosystem. We're part of the ecosystem. We're part of the divine. We're part of God. We're part of the universe. Like it's all here together, connected as one. So that is really powerful. To me, another thing that I've made synonymous in my life, just like vulnerability and courage, is power and love. To me, those are like the same thing. Love
Mm-mm.
is power, power is love. It's not about
Universal
power.
energy right there.
What'd you say?
It's a universal energy. Like it's one of the main
Right.
currencies that people, if not the main currency, your presence and energy is the main currency. And it always has been. People are just becoming more aware of it now.
You absolutely. What you just said is huge. I mean, about presence and that being your currency, it is like when you're truly in yourself, when you're like unified, like body, mind, spirit, soul, the whole thing, like you're in your power. You're not as easily distracted by things. I think one of the hugest things that distracts us from who we really are as powerful, loving beings is all the stuff we got going on in modern life with TV and news and social media, and it's just the more you can cut out distractions in your life, whatever that looks like. For some people it's sex, for some people it's alcohol and partying on the weekends, for some it's whatever, but the more you can just be grounded and focused and purposeful, the more you realize how powerful you are. And when I say powerful, it's like you have power, we all have power with. There is
Mm-hmm.
no like, because anything over or under is control. It's not like power is always sourced together.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the jungle. It's all power together, right? Everything in that ecosystem has power to influence other things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just about your influential capability and capacity. And then how do you utilize that as being part of this network? Are you doing it in a way that's harmonious? Are you doing it in a way that is like detrimental and taking
Destructive.
away?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Prince said that he was and Prince never really did too many interviews. Shout out to Prince, literally
Mm,
one of the goats. And I understand why he never did too many interviews, because he knew something that we understand today, right? In regards to the Matrix. And I remember him saying that there's only two kind of people in this world. Either you're here to enlighten or you're here to discourage. That's pretty much it.
mm,
And
mm-hmm,
then when you look at it, you scroll on social media, or you really just step outside and you listen to some of the conversation that people are having, you can really feel their energetic vibration. And that version of them at that point in time may be discouraging unconsciously until they go do something and now they realize, okay, hey, I'm actually here to enlighten, right?
mm. Yep.
I think it's important for us to, just as you said, understand that every action, every decision that we make has a ripple effect. And it's important for us to, with as little wisdom as we have, because we will continue to make mistakes for as long as we're in this flesh suit. Pass on a little wisdom that you have. Just plant the seed. If it grows in a year, it grows. If it doesn't grow in a year, maybe it'll grow in 3 years, maybe it'll grow in 5 years. But it's I said a quote on my IG that we get so caught up in trying to be the catalyst for somebody else's transformation when we should just be focused on knowing if they got it or not. Did you get the message? That's it. I don't need to be with you on stage. It's not me. It's the Most High that's speaking through me to you to help you ascend so that way you can do the same thing that I just did. That's it. We get so caught up in wanting to be, it's clout chasing. As the young people say, it's just a lot of clout. It's spiritual clout chasing, and it's unfortunate. That's why I was talking to my homie 22, and I coined this term. I think maybe when I was in therapy, actually, I said it out loud. We need spiritual fortitude. There's mental fortitude, but you need spiritual fortitude to keep you discerned with knowing who you can be safe with, who you can be vulnerable with and transparent with. Not everybody is able to receive that level of emotional depth that you have created throughout your life. Not saying that makes them a bad person. They're just not at that point in their journey yet. So we just need to be a little bit more intentional with where we spend that energy, because going on social media, everybody is doing the same thing. And I would argue that the spiritual community, the holistic community, can be one of the more, I don't like using this word, toxic communities. That buzzword is just really out there a lot, like toxic, because it's people are starving for connection, intimacy, and love. What a lovely thing to do, to just say, hey, click the link in my bio and come and talk to me, so that way I can help you see what's going on. And it's like, just I mean, people are capitalizing on people's emotions. I mean, it's everybody's capitalizing off everybody some way, but it's people are very vulnerable right now. And once you're able to see it, it's like, come on, bro, like this really isn't the way. That's not the way at all.
I think a big part of it comes back to what we were talking about earlier with trusting yourself. Like how do you get to that place though, if like you've grown up, like there was a lot of gaslighting that happened for me. So like I learned to absolutely not trust myself for shit.
In your childhood, just in your upbringing?
Yeah, like through adolescence. Until I left home and then was able to be like, what the fuck just happened? What's going on here? And then start my healing journey and get clarity and clear all this stuff out. But like training, I think it's training. I think it's so wonderful you started talking about jujitsu, because it all comes to training at the end of the day. Whether you call it training or you call it practice or whatever it is, like everything that you're gonna get good at, you just gotta practice. It doesn't fucking matter if you want to or not. If you want to get somewhere, you want to get good at something, you just gotta go through it. And like you were saying earlier too, like people don't want to go through that. You don't want to go through the uncomfortability. You don't want to go through. They don't want to, and that's a mistake. I think that's a mistake, if anything. I think fucking it up, doing it messy, looking bad, whatever, paying some prices of like people judging you or whatever happens, like that's fine. None of that's a mistake. None of anything you're doing that is going to result in those type of consequences is a mistake. The mistake is to not go out there, not put yourself through things that are fucking hard because you feel like, oh, I don't want to, or oh, it's too hard, or whatever people say. Like that kind of stuff it's like squashing your soul. And you gotta be, when you want to get to a place of being able to trust yourself, if like most of us, you didn't grow up with parents, teachers, preachers, everybody that taught you how to trust yourself. So most of us did not grow up in an environment. I think pretty much, I don't want to say universally because I don't like to make statements like that, but I would say like vast majority of people like that are alive right now, we have not grown up into families that said trust yourself. I think it's changing, and there's a lot of like conscious parenting and therapy and things that are teaching us how to heal so we can teach that to our children. I think most of us like did not grow up in those type of environments, so we get to teach ourselves. And that's not only an individual process, it's absolutely collective. Like
That shit is hard. Being the disciplinarian and the cool parent, but it's you. That shit.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not an easy task at all.
But
No.
it's training. Like again, I mean,
Yeah.
jujitsu doesn't sound easy to me. I'm not like, yeah, let me go do that. But at the same time, there's a part of me. I'll be honest with you, Griff. There's a part of me that I want to go try it because it sounds
Listen,
hard. Because
and
I don't
that's
want
what
to get
I
my ass kicked. So I'm like,
that's
I'll
what
do
I
it.
like. That's what I like about it. And for women, just a quick sidebar. I think
Mhm.
it's beautiful. Some of the ladies that I've rolled with in class, like savages, absolute monsters. Like they outside of the gym, hey, smiley, da 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 da. And inside the gym, they smiling. But if they take your back, you might get choked out. And that's just gonna be what happens. And then they gonna, wake you up and tell you what you did wrong, and then you're gonna roll again, right? It really is. If you get the opportunity, Alexis, I think
Mm,
you should try it. I also
mm,
think that it's important for you to find the right gym that works for you. You'll be able to feel it, right? Because
yeah,
it is a community thing.
of
Once you
course.
find it, which I'm sure you will, after a while you're gonna be like, oh, I don't like this. I'm stubbing my toe, my thumb is jammed, I'm all achy, and then you're like, well, you're like laying down at night, you're like, well, she did that, but I think I'm stronger than her. My leg's a little bit stronger, but maybe I can. And then you just
Mm,
slowly creep back up to like, no, don't worry. This is my second day. Then it's your third day. Then it's 2 weeks in, right? It That process is endless. People ask me all the time, well, Griff, how did you get so how did you get to where you are now, emotionally speaking? Shout out to Brittany. She said you don't be crying at the function and shit, but at the same time you also, your emotional depth is deep. And one way that I explained to her was that I did a lot of introspection, and I remember as a kid that I was kind of always tapped in. I was angry at the fact that I could feel so much but not know how to articulate it. That's what
mm,
pissed me off growing up. And then as I got older, started writing more, started really pushing myself more. I like to think of it in this way, because I know most people are not going to do the difficult things. I'm going to do what most people are not going to do because it's going to pay off for me in the long run. I don't
yes.
like it. I don't like being disciplined. Griff, you always motivated? No, I'm not always motivated.
Hmm.
I don't want to show up to class and get choked out and look bad.
Hmm.
I don't want to go
Hmm.
to a tournament and not win. I don't
Right.
want to get rejected by a woman who I'm attracted to, right? Nobody wants to do these things, but it has to be done. Otherwise, you won't really know what you're capable of. And
Mhm.
once you get over yourself in that aspect of failure, because I don't like failure, but I'm also not a quitter. I'm stubborn anyway. I'm a really stubborn motherfucker. I ain't gonna lie to you. Just full transparency. My shadow side, that boy is stubborn for real. Like, he is. It's okay. I love him though. He's a part of me, but stubborn as shit. Um, it it's something that's become easy for me. Like I don't, some people they need a training partner to go to the gym.
Right,
You're gonna
right.
see me in there by myself because you're not gonna always have anybody that'll give you a swift kick in the ass. So
But let me ask you, like, has it become easy or have you trained yourself to just go for it anyway?
both. It's not a
Okay.
thought. It's autonomous, right? So
Yeah.
I remember when it was a dark patch in my life. I totaled my car and I got fired from my job the same day.
Mm,
The friends that I was living with at the time, they had jobs. They weren't really concerned, but I was kind of the daddy in the house because I just have that energy. That's just what I was, and I will always be that. So I knew that I still got to figure out my part. I still have to do something. So apply for jobs, and that's when I started my fitness journey, if you will.
mhm.
The only time they saw me is when I was leaving for work and when I was training. Other than that, they didn't see me. I told them, I said, look, I'm about to get shredded in 90 days. And they laughed. I was like, okay, laugh now. Laugh now. 60 days later, 7% body fat. And they're like, yo, what did you, I mean, we didn't know. Don't ask questions now. I don't want to hear no questions. I don't want to hear how did you, when did you, none of that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just like how you said it, to a degree, to an outsider, it may seem easy,
Right.
but that came from days and days and days of just doing things that are boring. People would look at that as boring. You go to the gym
Mm.
5 times, you go to the gym 5 days a week, and you do jujitsu, so you're doing 2 days a week. Like, how are you? Is like, I just, like, it's my life. Like, it's just, I just do it. I don't always feel like it, but I just do it. Like, it's integrated in me to
Yeah.
do difficult things. That way, when something difficult happens, I'm not spazzing out. I'm more of the Optimus Prime. I'm chilling. Hey, yo, we need to go over there. We need to go do
Yeah.
this. We need these resources, because no woman likes a man that's about to spaz out. No man likes a man that's about to spaz out,
Mm-hmm.
especially if we go into war. So to answer your question, it's both. It's
Mm-hmm.
easy to a degree, but at the same time, it's still a practice, because I could easily just say, fuck it, I'm gonna just drink a 6 pack every day,
Mm.
eat Cheetos and Fritos every day, and
Mm.
all this hard work is just gonna go to waste just like that. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think what is coming up for me that I want people to recognize through what you're saying is that like that is applicable to everything in life. Like training is such a mirror. And I've also, I mean, I've been an athlete my entire life, like multi-sport athlete since, you know, basically I could walk.
Hmm.
So that is applicable to literally everything. Whether you're going into entrepreneurship, whether you want to build a business, whether you want to build a relationship, like whatever it is, you know, whether you are trying to figure out how to heal yourself, whether you are um, anything, like it's really applicable to everything. For me in my journey, like one of the biggest things too has been that the internal consciousness shifts, the things that go on like within me, where it's like, I don't necessarily want to think about like where does something come from? Why is it that I do this thing that might be detrimental to myself or to others? For
Hmm.
example, like that's a big thing. You know, I feel like most of the time people are avoiding themselves. There's a
Hell
lot of
yeah.
like
Hell
a
yeah.
lot of avoidance. I do it too. You know, if we
Hell
come
yeah.
to like the attachment styles of like anxious versus avoidant, mine is for
Hell
sure
yeah.
avoidant. It's for sure avoidant. I am hella avoidant
Hell
of stuff
yeah.
I don't like to do. It's not anxious at all. It's totally so I'm working on it, right? So I'm actually like literally I gave you a tangible example. Yesterday I wrote down, I literally got it right here, a list of all the things I've been avoiding. And I was like, oh man, I've been avoiding like 15 different things. I was like, dang. So I wrote them all down and I was like, okay, I get to take steps daily to check this off. And I started
Hmm.
last night. I was like, I just get to go for it. And then the thing is, though, like some of them are bigger than others. So I looked and I'm like, what has been stopping me from this? And it's usually a fear. There's usually something that's in the way that I'm like, yikes. Like for example, like my fear of, you know, coming to jujitsu class with you would be like getting my ass kicked. Like that would be really scary. I'd be like, I do not want to do that. Right. But if it's like I can face it, if I could just, it ultimately just comes to that. Like you were saying, I just
Hmm.
go for it and just do it. It sounds easy. You actually gotta just do that though. Like, you know, you gotta go through it. And so for me, when it comes to like internal exploration and the consciousness healing and working with like who you really are and all this big multidimensional stuff, we don't gotta go too much into all that right now, but like
Hmm.
we do it in another podcast episode sometime.
Hmm.
But I think it is like, oh, okay, if this fear comes up, right? And then I want to distract myself. I want to think about something else. I want to be like, oh, and that's not a big deal. We tend to really want to distract ourselves and avoid a lot of like the deep,
Justify it. Hmm.
yeah, that deep, like scary, like, you know, like gremlins lurking in the shadows of our own subconscious kind of thing. Monsters under the bed of
Yeah.
like our own mind.
And it's
So
you.
we're
It's just
really
versions of
good.
you. Hmm.
Yes, and we got like planetary strategies. Look at like literally my Zoom background. We got
Yeah.
planetary strategies.
That's the
To,
brain.
to distract and avoid from
Right.
from just looking into it. And so for me, again, it's like what you were saying is so applicable to life. So when it comes to like psychological healing, like emotional healing, spiritual healing, like you just got to do it. And I think what actually allows for that is knowing your strength, knowing what you're capable of, going through it. So for me, it's like growing up in the hood developed like a warrior spirit in me where I'm like, I will fight, like I will defend. Like
It's
that's
in your eyes. I can't recall how I came across you. Either it was with Cosmic, he reposted
yeah.
you. I think that's what it was.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then
That
as
was
I'm
how we connected. Yeah.
right scrolling down your page, and I'm just like, because you were talking about the inner social dynamics with just in what what happens with black men in society today. And I was like, this is interesting. Let me see what is. And then what you were saying was like, oh, she knows what's going. She's actually tapped in. Like you had the knowledge, and not
Mm.
only did you have the knowledge, you had the experience, and then you could just see it as well. You can see that again, going back to the Jaguar. I might be all soft and velvety, but I got claws. I got these teeth. Like if you fuck with me, I might have to rip your throat out. I don't want to
Right.
have to do that. I would prefer if we could be diplomatic. Now, if I have to, I will. I noticed that. It's and it's maintaining that balance. You have a sword, like how Jordan Peterson says. It's knowing that I can keep this sword sheath because I choose to.
Yeah.
Don't make me have to. I don't want to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make
Mm-hmm.
me have to use it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. 100%. That's the thing that keeps me like going through things. When it comes to something that's uncomfortable, when it comes to something that I quote unquote don't want to do, it's the thing that allows me to face it and just fucking do it anyways, is like knowing my power, knowing my courage, knowing my confidence. Even if I don't feel it all the time, I don't feel it 100% of the time, but I know it. Like in my heart, I know it's there. I know that courage is there. I know that strength is there. That confidence is there. And so I'm like, let's go. And then I just do it. That's for me. When people say just do it, sometimes it's like, well, what do you mean, right? Or someone would be like, but I can't. That's a word I eliminated from my vocabulary, by the way, like 7 years ago. I threw that word out the window. I was like, that doesn't exist anymore. I don't even, we're not messing around with that word. And then like, well, I'm gonna try, well, I'm gonna go for it, or okay. And then opening myself up to possibility in terms of exploring my own consciousness, exploring my own monsters under the bed, like getting connected for me with that quote unquote shadow side, right? Like, I mean, the subconscious runs like 95% of your life. So
Mm-hmm.
if that's the shadow, you got a lot of shadow to
Mm-hmm.
explore, because it's a whole thing that we say shadow is just is subconscious. It's beneath the surface. It's under the waterline. I can't see it necessarily, like an iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
So I just go for it because I'm like, why not? I might as well. But it is, I think, there's so many layers to this, and having courage to either like have seen death, have faced death, and see it, like where you're growing up or knowing it, being around it. That's a part of it too, because like I know for sure I don't want to be participating in a system that's advocating for that, and I'm also like, it's a reality of life. So I'm not actually avoiding the reality of death in life. It's present. I know it's there. So it almost like, instead of avoiding it, which might lead me to just be scared and put up blocks and walls and say, I don't even want to touch that because it might do that. I'm like, okay, that's a possibility. Yeah. But is it probably going to happen? No.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we go beneath a lot of our fears, I want to say most of them, it's death. If we go in a downward spiral and we're like, well, that might happen. If someone judges me, well, then, I might get ostracized from the tribe. If I get ostracized, I might be all by myself. And if I'm all by myself, then I might die homeless on the street, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it,
Yeah.
it goes to death at some level. So we can face that and notice, like, it's a part of life. I can be real, I can be honest, I can be transparent about it. I think when we can face death, then we can face life in life and not be like
if you
waiting.
aren't afraid to die, they have nothing over you. They
Right.
being society, the elites, if you will. If you look them, if the worst thing that you can do to me is kill me, give me like 10 minutes. I'm gonna pack my suitcase, and then you can do what you gotta do because I've been ready to leave. And I'm not coming back. It's really that simple. Because they look at you like, shit, she not ready to die. Like she's not afraid of dying. Hold on, man. Then they gotta go back and murmur and figure out what they're gonna do. So then they try to torture you to get something out of you. It's like, no, I'm not afraid anymore. Same thing with B for Vendetta. He tortured her, shaved her head off, gave her a real story that was tangible, and then at the end of it, he let her go, and then she realized, like, oh snap, that was, you lied to me, you tortured me, and then she steps outside in the rain, and she realizes that God is in the rain. She's like, I'm not afraid to die. And then when you have no more fear, you're truly able to try anything. Like you're not losing doesn't hurt your ego as much. Not even losing. The fear of losing or the thought of losing doesn't hurt your ego as much. The fear of not being successful doesn't hurt you as much. The fear of not becoming grounded internally doesn't hurt you anymore because you literally let go of fear. You've let go of the fear of fear. It's like not only is there the cave and what's in it, there's what your mind is potentially telling you that's inside of it.
This is the facing of the unknown. This is the because I think this is where we're walking. I don't think like, again, I'm not at any destination point. I'm not at any goal point. I'm not on any mountaintop, but it's like the path that I'm walking. Like I have faced it. The amount of times that I have faced those things that are fucking terrifying to me, including like literally my worst fear ever, faced it face to face in the face of another human being, you know, that type of shit, like it does something for you. When you don't become a victim to those things and you allow it to like strengthen you and to empower you and to fuel you to go forward, then who you become is someone who is willing to face those fears instead of letting it hold you back. But like we said earlier, it is a practice too. Like I am not perfect at it. There's every day, like it's a new thing, but it's walking in that way that gives me the strength and gives me the courage to face those things. I love that we've been talking about this in different ways, right? Like the whole conversation.
It really started with jujitsu. That really is the thing. You have to, one of these days I'm gonna get a call from you and you're gonna say, Griff, I'm doing it and I need to see videos and I need to see pictures and we're gonna talk about your experience with it. I like that Russell Brand talks about his journey with it. His journey with it has been very beautiful and I want to continue. We probably could talk all night for me, midday for you. But before we close out, is there anything or one last piece of wisdom that you want to leave to the people in regards with how to handle, essentially how to thrive in life today where there's so many distractions, people feel really lonely. We're living in the most connected, disconnected society that's ever been in history. Is there anything that you could give to the people to give them a sense of faith that they're okay and that they will be okay?
I think having a real, tangible, grounded, solid relationship with God is the biggest thing.
Inshallah.
And whether you call it God or you say whatever you want to, whatever name you want to say, it is that like a real, tangible, grounded, present experience and relationship. That's the biggest thing, is that recognizing you're not alone, even if it looks like you're physically isolated or distant or separate. Recognizing you're part of something larger, an ecosystem, nature, source, whatever you want to call it. To me, those words are all like, they're all fine. But feeling that, sensing that, recognizing that, utilizing your power to speak with that higher power, to talk to God, to say, hey, this is what I'm looking to create. This is what I want to bring in. How about we collaborate on this? And then watch it. Watch how you create. Like, watch things come to you. Allow yourself to receive, and then be like, that relationship is a two-way street. So you're giving and you're also receiving. When you're in that and you start to really tangibly recognize, I am part of something greater. I am part of something larger. I am inseparable from that. God is with me. I'm with God. We're not totally different, separate, entities, things, particles, whatever. That for me is like the baseline of the antidote of the rest of it. Because you could be surrounded by people and be hella lonely. You could be so distant. So for me, that's like the primordial hole that we have to fill as human beings, is that sense of disconnection or separation from God. Because when that's there, then I know I'm worthy. I know I'm cared for. I know I'm loved. I know I'm respected. I know I'm cherished. All these things that I'm spending so much time looking outside myself for. Like, when I recognize that and I'm internally aligned with it, my relationships are more fulfilling. I want to go be of service to people. I want to take care of like animals and the planet and, all my relationships, including the one with myself. When that relationship is taken care of, for me,
then
that's like,
take care of other people.
Yeah, that's the first one. So that's the foundation.
Yes. Alexis, Jaguar Priestess, it's been a pleasure. There has to be a number 2. And the number 2 might be on her podcast. It might be on mine. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. Just know that it will happen. Please let the people know where that they can find you, where that they could potentially work with you, and just how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, you can find me at the Jaguar Priestess on Instagram, and I think that's the best way for right now. People get in touch with me.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the Jaguar Priestess, it's been a pleasure. I will catch y'all on the next one.